Put on your hard hat and buckle up that tool belt. It's time for some heavy-duty conversation about all things construction. Welcome to Tommy's Toolbox, the podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Whitehead, and I'm also the CEO of TomCo Solutions, a full-service building contractor based in Tampa, Florida. Doors and windows, kitchens and baths, remodels for executives and investors, and full-scale storm restoration. My company, TomCo Solutions, does it all. Find out more at TomCoSolutions.com. I started this podcast, Tommy's Toolbox, because I'm more than just an accomplished contractor. I'm a forever student of all things construction. I always want to learn more, and I thought I'd share my natural curiosities and learnings with you. So thank you for joining me. Today, I'm very happy to be sitting with Alex Little, Fractional CFO and founder of Little CFO Services, to discuss how finance and accounting are instrumental in the world of construction. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're really excited. I know accounting is not an exciting subject, but money is.
Money definitely is.
So I always like to start out about talking about your foundation. Can you tell me about yourself?
I was actually born and raised in this area. I was born at McDale Air Force Base in Tampa, and lived here, grew up here, and moved to Utah in 2011. And then 6 months later, I really wanted to move back, but it took me 11 years to do that. So now I'm finally back here as of last year, and I plan to stay here.
Okay, so everybody wants to know, weather better in Utah or Florida?
Definitely Florida, but if you're really an outdoors person, Utah is a great place to be. And I love the the snow, but if you have to walk or drive in it, you take your life in your hands.
Yeah, I would take a hurricane any day over.
That's what. Every time I told people that I was going to be moving back to Florida, they're like, "Why?" I'm like, "Well, I tell people that Florida's like Australia's younger brother. Like in Australia, everything wants to kill you. In Florida, half of everything wants to kill you. But I'd rather have a handful of days out of the year where there's hurricanes and you may die compared to Utah, where 6 months out of the year there's snow and you could just break a hip on your way out the door or take your life in your hands going to the grocery store." So,
well, that's good to know. I'm very happy to be a Tampa, Florida boy myself. So I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, what is a fractional CFO? Can you tell us what you do?
So basically what I am is like a part-time chief financial officer for multiple small businesses at once. It's really for businesses that have grown enough to where they need that high-level strategic financial strategy and planning, but they're not, lucrative enough in order to afford a full-time, $300,000 a year CFO. So the whole fractional, it's a fraction of the time, but also a fraction of the cost. So you get that level of experience and knowledge, but for a little bit of time and a little bit of money.
Okay, so you help smaller businesses get that talent, and then hopefully through your talent, you've helped them grow. So that eventually, your end goal is to replace yourself so that they can have a full-time CFO on staff. But you're here for the intermediate time, whether it's 6 months or 5 years.
100%. So I usually work with people between 500,000 and up to 50 million. Anything over 10 million is where people start to phase out fractional CFOs and get into the full-time realm. But, there's some industries, it makes sense. They can be making 40 million, still have a small team. It really depends on the industry.
Okay. So how is a fractional CFO, a chief financial officer, different from a bookkeeping service? Because so many people in our industry think, I have a bookkeeper. They keep track of my finances. I'm happy with who they are because they just see a cash balance at the end of the day. So how is your service differentiated, and how do you step up contractors, subcontractors to the next level?
So I really like to start off with what is the difference between accounting and finance? Accounting is really about what happened in the past, what happened already. So your bookkeeper, your CPA, they're trained to deal with what already happened and record it properly, or try to figure out how they use it for the best tax deductions. But a finance professional, they're all about the future. Just like how your goals are in the future, a finance professional, they're there to help you figure out, okay, what are your goals? What is the end point look like for you? And then how do we get there? So a fractional CFO, they're all about cash flow forecasting or reviewing your financials to see how are we performing and compared to industry standards, or any type of budgeting or projections. And one of the things that sounds corny but is probably one of the most important things is the goal setting type of thing, Whereas, accountants don't really care what your goals are. It's all about what the financials, like what happened with your financials and recording them properly and accurately.
Okay, that's great. So you're a little bit like a building inspector, as an analogy, of course, but that you come in and instead of checking everything after it's done, when the drywall's already up and the paint's already up, you're checking along the way and helping to fix problems before they become problems.
For sure. Yeah. So one of the things I tell people, because a lot of people have these arbitrary, goals of like, oh, I want to make $1 million in revenue this year. Well, that's great and all, but if you make $1 million in revenue this year, but you took home the same amount you did last year, does it really mean anything? It really comes down to oh, that's just a bragging right at the golf course type of thing. At the end of the day, people want to sell their business for X amount in X amount of years, or they want to take home, X amount every month. And once we dig down deep into figuring out what that is, because you can even go further of okay, well, what X amount do you want to bring home every month? And it's basically oh, I want to be able to afford to, take time off to go to my kids' baseball games, or, I want to go to France twice a year and have 4 Teslas. Who knows? Everybody comes down to something like that. And once I know what that looks like, I can reverse engineer what the financials have to look like to support that. And then we have, the end game of what the financials need to look like to support that. And then if you have a good accountant and you have your financials in order, then we know where you are right now. And then my goal and my whole purpose is there to help you find the path from where we are right now to where your goals are in the future.
That's incredible. And that's really useful. A lot of people in my industry are a little afraid to talk accounting. I think a lot of industries are. You had shared an analogy. I want you to reshare that again, but you had shared an analogy about financials with me before the podcast. Can you share that analogy with me again?
Yeah. So I'd say that people's financials are like the private parts. They don't want to share that with anyone. Whereas people will walk up and talk about your marketing, easy. They'll share that stuff all day. But when it comes to financials, people are just very guarded with them. So in the finance industry, and in accounting, you have to really gain an extra 2 levels of trust just to start talking about someone's situation and give them suggestions on how they can improve.
So they really should treat you like a financial doctor. They should just say, hey, you're not there to judge. You're only there to get them on the right path that they want to be on.
100%. That's a right good analogy of just the doctor. Hey, I can't help you unless you tell me what's wrong and you show me what's going on.
That's amazing. So when you were a kid, what did you want to do when you were grow up? Did you want to be a fractional CFO when you grew up?
No. Most of my life, I was actually always taught by my dad that real estate is where it's at. Owning a business is how you get wealthy. But for most of my life, it was actually to be a sniper in the military.
Okay.
I actually also started school at the University of South Florida as an architect. Okay. But then I discovered real quick that is a hobby for me and not a passion. Mm-hmm. And I always had the passion of business, playing with money, just making money, improving processes. So I went down the business route and eventually came down to accounting or finance for me. And I actually kind of regret going the accounting route. I tell people I'm a recovering accountant because I switched over to operations finance because that's a lot more fun for me. But that's how my path unfolded for me.
So being an entrepreneur is in your blood, and you became an entrepreneur to now help other entrepreneurs. So you're seeing it from all the way around. Yeah.
I've gone from being the first employee at a startup company that eventually actually got acquired by KPMG, which I'm pretty proud of because I found out 2 weeks in that the CEO wasn't an accountant. So it was an accounting company. I had to basically come up with all the processes and the workflows by myself when I was still learning how that works because I was in college at the time. But I've gone to, Fortune 500 company. And I just found that it's a lot more enjoyable and fun and impactful to work with those small business owners. The energy that small business owners have is completely different than that high level corporate type of work.
So when you're working or were working in that high level corporate work, it's just kind of like stamping a report, coming in Monday to Friday, it just pushing through. It's a no-name stockholder that's benefiting from this. Versus when you see what you do today, you can see, hey, I was with that contractor when they took that 10x jump and went from $500,000 to $5 million, and I was a part of that. So that kind of gets you invigorated to see that, and then you try to one up yourself. I'm sure you try to replicate that success or help other contractors, subcontractors, construction professionals replicate that exact same success.
Yeah, I mean, like the big corporate stuff is helpful because you get to see like how a publicly traded company does it and their processes, but there's no excitement there. Like when you make a big win and you get like a project 10x or a company 10x and you saved the company a bunch of money, you might get like a pat on the back and that's about it. But like that's life changing for like a small business owner. So like it means so much more with small business owners, and you can affect somewhat many more people. If I 10x the business or save a bunch of money, that's a new employee's job or bonuses for everybody in the company or something. Whereas at the big company, that's good job, thumbs up.
That's incredible that you have that passion for small business owners. So tell me, Alex, did you have a role model or maybe a mentor that kind of got you to where you're at today?
Yeah, so there's a guy named Michael King. He started his own fractional CFO firm for a few years, did accounting as well, and then has kind of transitioned to focusing more on teaching other CPAs or accountants or fractional CFOs how to start or grow their firm. And I've used a lot of what he's taught as my foundations and then just kind of customize it for my own. And then like in my more personal life, or I guess general business life, non-fractional CFO related, one of the guys I know really well his name is Levi May, and he's become basically one of my best friends. That one of only two people in this world I actually trust 100% just because I know, his character, and he's got the same like process improvement mentality as me, and we just work really well together. But those two people I think have been the most impactful on this journey of being a fractional CFO.
That's wonderful. And so something I want to make sure we make clear here, even the financial professional has mentors and advisors to help them advise their clients. So there's no shame in a contractor, a subcontractor, any kind of business owner to go and consult a financial professional to help them with what they're working on. We all need consultants. We all need more opinions. We all need advice from people that are better. We can't be the best at everything.
100%. I mean, like even all the people that you know or think of that are geniuses, they all have advisors. There's no CEO out there that doesn't have a team that's backing them up. They can't be the expert at everything.
That's an important message, especially with people that think I can do my accounting, because that's the very first thing that gets you into trouble.
Yeah, I mean, like that's one of the first things that you should probably hire for. But like what I think a lot is people don't think enough about opportunity cost. Like you can do everything and save that money, just like a contractor. Like, oh, I could do the plumbing or like electrical myself and like YouTube it. Yeah, but is the quality going to be the same? And like, how much do you value your time? You may save $150, but it may take you 4 or 5 hours to do that. Are you only like a $25 an hour? Like that's how much you value your time, type of thing. And I find that the smartest people really just they utilize other people's expertise and they leverage that. So like, don't try and be an expert in everything, or like marketing. I think everyone should become a student of marketing, but having someone help you get there, or at least like, tell you what's the best to do. Having a fractional CMO, for example, but like everyone should probably learn a little bit about it, every like area, so that you can hold people accountable and know what like good should look like. But, hire out your weaknesses. Like I'm not going to try and do everything myself. Like that's just not the best use of my time.
Not mine either. I have a team of professionals around me, consultants that help me, even though if I know how to do something, I've had to learn to become more successful, I have to let go of certain things. I might know how to do them, but is that the best use of my time? Alex, tell me what drives you? What's the favorite part of your day, or what would you say is like a win for the day? Is like, wow, I just won the day.
Probably just the saving clients money or like seeing how I'm impacting their business positively. Um, that's really what gets me out of bed in the morning. I just love playing in the business space. I love hearing about how people are doing business and learning new ways of how to approach a problem or just how they see life, and being able to, just have that huge impact on the client. Like a recent client, just implementing a new payment processor is going to save him at least, 25 grand over the next year here, plus kind of solve his whole 100,000 plus of outstanding receivables problem. And that's huge for him. He's been struggling the past several months or this whole year really. And that just got to change his life,
And that sounds like you paid for yourself.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So he hired you, nervous about, I don't have money for an accountant, I'm sure, if he's already having concerns about his financials before, but he hires you and it's like, oh, this is dangerous. I got to put more money out when I'm already worried about money. And you come in and you, in this circumstance, was able to save a lot of, or maybe all of your fee, or maybe even more of, just on one tip, just one piece of advice. And that's not even the whole consulting that you're doing for him. You're touching so many things in his finances. So you're probably making him more money by by helping him.
Yeah. Well, with that client, I'm not even doing fractional CFO work for him. My firm is just doing the outsourced accounting and tax. I haven't even started working with him as a fractional CFO client, but just as far as my firm provides accounting and tax support, and as part of the accounting, support, we don't just do, QuickBooks Online and that's it. I wish my clients to hey, this software, this piece of technology is going to make your life easier. It's going to make our lives easier, and it will save you X money, and it more than paid for our entire year's worth of fee.
So if a business isn't quite ready for a CFO, if they don't, obviously they're not ready for a CFO if they don't have their $10 million. So then the step down is a fractional CFO, which is same quality, less time. Maybe if they're not ready for those fees, that level of interaction, you actually offer services for rolling it back to even more beginners in a accounting and tax perspective. Is that what I was picking up? So you'll start with smaller clients and graduate with them, or help them graduate with you.
Yeah. So right now, I personally provide the fractional CFO work, and then I have a team that provides the bookkeeping and tax support. Right now, I'm small enough to where I like to get on the onboarding of a new client for accounting, to make sure the infrastructure, the processes are set up. I can help with the implementation of new software, and then I hand it over to a team to actually do the day-to-day operations. But I found very quickly that as a fractional CFO, I can't do my job unless they have good books. If their books are just most prospects and clients that I talk to were like, oh yeah, I love my bookkeeper. My bookkeeper's amazing. And then I take a look at their books and it's just a dumpster fire. I'm I can't give you any type of suggestions or strategy because I don't know where you're at. None of that makes any sense. I have no idea if you're profitable or not. So, we have to have the books in order first in order to even start this fractional CFO conversation. And I just found so many people that were like that. And I found that just because someone's a great networker doesn't mean that they're really good at their job. So instead of referring people to other bookkeepers and other accountants, I figured I'd just bring it in-house and use technology that's come out in the last 2 years to really, up the standard of what an accountant should provide to a company, and get them a better insight into where they're at financially.
So you're saying it is never too early in your company stages to at least have a conversation with you. Maybe they don't even engage you immediately, but it's never too early. Never feel like you're too small to at least start the conversation, come up with a plan. That way you can keep them clean from the beginning instead of having to probably charge them a lot of money to clean them up after they use that quote unquote bookkeeper that's grandma's best friend or something, or did it for 20 years. That was my favorite. When I and my audience might not know, but I used to be a director of finance and accounting before I was in construction, and that was almost 15 years ago. And I did that sometimes where they had the bookkeeper and somebody would come in and say, why have we lost all this money? And I'm like, well, your bookkeeper just lost all this. Do you see all these errors? Do you see all this missing money? It's gone. They weren't stealing. They just weren't competent.
Yeah, no, 100%. So that's actually why I started like the accounting and tax side of my business, is that I had a friend that his two businesses were struggling and they were having a problem with one of their projects, and the shareholders asked me to audit it. I came in and did an audit of the project and found that the like 130 grand that they lost on like a settlement with the client was mainly because the bookkeeper just didn't keep track of everything properly. Like that's huge, 130 grand, simply just because the books weren't in order and you weren't tracking things properly. Like that hurts. Especially from, because one of the biggest problems is people just don't value accounting. They think it's the necessary evil, but it's like your financials can give you so much insight into your business, and it can be a money saver or a profit generating segment of your business if you just value it and have the right people in place.
Okay, I want to move on to this next segment called Tools for Success. And we want to talk a little bit about, well, your tools for success. It's right there in the title. So, Alex, what education have you received or lessons have you learned that you would say helped you in the most in your profession? I mean, we know, we always hear CPA. You're not a CPA, but CPAs aren't always required to be in the accounting profession. I mean, to go on to say that you don't always need a CPA. An accountant can do many, many, many things. A CPA is more of much larger projects frequently, but accountants can be very well trained. So can you tell us about your education, your background, what makes you a great fractional CFO?
Yeah, so two things there. One, like I have my master's in accounting and I wanted to be special, so I did a double emphasis in audit and information systems because I'm kind of like the IT or IS geek. But CPAs are only needed in specific things that I don't even provide as a business. Like I have an enrolled agent on my team, which an enrolled agent is someone who's specifically trained for tax, whereas a CPA is trained in a lot of different things. So you can be a CPA and just not be a tax person, like not do taxes at all. So that's why I have that tax specific person to handle all the tax work on my team. But also like a finance professional doesn't, a lot of them, like a lot of the people that I've met in financial planning and analysis, like they weren't accountants. They didn't have any type of accounting background or education. They were pure finance. And sometimes, it's a hamstring. It really can set them back a little bit for their understanding. But for the most part, like Michael King, like I had mentioned, he was a nuclear sub-engineer. Like he had no finance training background. He kind of, when he got out of the Navy, he kind of stumbled into a CFO role and had his controller teaching him like how the financials work and stuff like that. It's more about problem solving and approaching like what is the cause of this issue, or just planning things in the future. Like you don't need an actual finance background. One of the other guys that I've been following a lot more lately is actually also here in Florida. His name is David Richter. He was a real estate investor, and he just was solving problems with people that he knew, other investors that were making money but felt broke, and just showing them where they were basically losing all their money. And that turned into, a $3 million fractional CFO firm. Like he didn't have, official finance training or anything. It's just if you have a passion for numbers and you solve problems, that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Got it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but to be a CPA now, I think in most markets, you have to have a master's in accountancy. So you have the same education level as a CPA. You just didn't sit for an exam so that you can be a public accountant.
Yeah, for sure. So like in Utah, I could have sat for the CPA exam halfway through my master's. Like you don't have to have a master's, but like with the education requirements, like that's the easiest and obvious way to get that requirement done. I just didn't get my CPA because I didn't plan on going into public accounting and doing people's taxes and being an auditor or anything like that. And most people, just like other education things, that people just see the acronym after your name and just assume that means you can do this thing. Mm-hmm. Like there's so many that's part of why I started the accounting and tax side of my firm, is that people just saw like fractional CFO, like, oh, that means that you can do my accounting and my taxes, right? I'm like, that's 3 different roles. Mm-hmm. But that's just, every profession has that.
Contractors definitely do. Oh, yeah. You're a contractor, so you can design my seawall. Well, no, we're not a seawall contractor, which is a specialty type of contractor that in Florida, I believe, is licensed even separately from a general contractor. They just see the word contractor. Oh, they could do that. I'm a contractor. They could touch up paint in my house. Well, no, that's a handyman's shop. So it sounds like accounting is the exact same way. You say the word accounting, but that could be
so many
things. You do an emphasis in the construction accounting, but not necessarily food and beverage. Now, could you look at a food and beverage financials? I'm sure you could. Would you understand them as well as you do construction financials? Probably not. Is that's kind of correct?
Yeah. So my specialties on the fractional CFO side of the house is construction, real estate, and home services. But almost all of the strategies apply to every single business. But startups or software as a service companies, or companies startups going through seed round funding, or like you said, restaurants and bars and stuff like that. There's a lot of specific metrics and things to focus on that you need the industry knowledge for, that would take a little while for me to get up to speed on. But the same general principles are still going to apply no matter what industry you're in.
That's awesome. So Alex, you were talking about CPA being a certified public accountant, but you serve the public as well. Can you just kind of clarify that, the CPA versus enrolled agent versus bookkeeper?
Yeah, so a CPA really just means that they got the education requirement and sat for 4 different exams. Even in the CPA realm, just because they have that license, they could be specialized in so many different things. They could be a tax CPA. They could be a CPA that does audits of publicly traded companies, or even private companies if the stockholders or shareholders require that. There's a lot of different things that a CPA can do. For instance, some things that a CPA can do that I can't would be to sign off tax returns, provide officially audited financials, or represent a taxpayer to the IRS. But all those things, everything except for the tax return part, I don't provide as part of my firm, but I have an enrolled agent that provides the tax return signatures. So there's a lot of things that a CPA can do, but I think it's more in general. I guess that's one of my big arguments is as long as you have the experience and understanding of how to do it, if you can do the job, there's only a few things that regulatory you can't do if you don't have a CPA. But it should be more about do you know what you're talking about?
Got it.
But yeah, CPAs are usually for, they can do people's tax returns, do tax planning, stuff like that. But, I can do tax planning.
Okay. That's good. Thanks for that clarification. So Alex, what do you think your customers and clients want most?
At the end of the day, they want to know where they're at financially, and they want to be able to go to sleep at night and not be kept up by, can I afford payroll in 2 weeks? Or, am I going to get a surprise tax bill? Because most people that I talk to, they may say sales and marketing is my number one, problem in my business. But when you talk to them a little bit further, the thing that's keeping them up at night is their financials. And hey, I have a huge outstanding AR, or I don't know my cash flow. I don't know if I'm going to run out of money in a month or anything like that. I don't know if I can afford to hire another employee, or they'll get a surprise tax bill that they don't know. I have a client that has that right now. He's getting a $30,000 payroll tax bill that he thought was taken care of, but wasn't. So those are the things that they just want peace of mind. And it's a corny thing to say, but that finance peace of mind that someone that aspect of their business is taken care of, and there's nothing that they have to worry about, and they know where they're at.
That's right. I mean, people don't understand finances. They get nervous about them. They're afraid to ask about them, and then they don't get their peace of mind.
Yeah. So. It's a uncomfortable, no one, I think it's just a society thing. It's no one really wants to talk about how much they're making or their financial problems, but that's the stuff that keeps them up at night, and it's stressing them out the most. And it's okay, well, help you, help me help you, just, share those things and talk about it. And I'm sure that we could save you a lot of money if you just, trust in someone else.
Okay. So is there like a stereotype or myth about accounting that you might want to clear up with us?
Like I said before, that accounting is a cost center. Like people see it as a necessary evil. I even, when I was first starting my firm, I got on the phone with a guy and he was just looking for like the cheapest bookkeeper available. And he even told me that he doesn't value his financials. He's just doing it because he has to for taxes. And like, are you a nonprofit then? Because like, are you not in it for the money? You don't want to know how much money you're making. You have no idea how your business is doing. Like, you don't know if you're making money on that project or not. Like, I don't understand. Like, you use your financials to know where you're making money, where you need to improve, if you have to raise your prices, if you're paying too much for a service. It's also where you can find those pesky subscriptions that you forgot about. I had a client that until I had her review like all of her expenses in detail, like twice a year, she didn't know that she was paying 4 different Zoom subscriptions for employees that were no longer there. Like there's stuff like that, for most business owners, they think it's just a necessary evil and a cost. But if you use it properly and have a good accountant or finance person, they can give you that financial insight into like, here's these trends, or like, this is where we need to improve on our business. It can make you money. But like, if you don't have the data, then you have no idea that problem or whatever exists. It can't improve without knowing where you're at.
That's great. Set the benchmark and know where you're at. It's not a judgment. We're just going to move forward. So that's great, Alex. This next segment is called Stud Finders. It's not just a tool. Clearly the audience has found us. Obviously. So can you give me the name of a person or a company that you kind of see really being as top of the game? Maybe somebody you look up to or get advice from, or you aspire to be at right now?
Yeah. So there's a guy on LinkedIn called Chris Riley. I started talking to him a long time ago. He used to be in private equity doing financial models for companies. And his big thing now on LinkedIn is giving courses on financial modeling and about private equity deals and how to structure them and stuff like that. And I am proud to say that I was one of the first people that tried out his courses, and he actually had me test them for free and give him feedback. And now he's blown up. Like, he's one of the LinkedIn partners his courses are part of the LinkedIn learning experience. And he's just kind of blown up for this year. I'm really proud to see him flourish, and he knows what he's talking about. He's an expert in his field, and it's helped me. Like, I thought I had pretty good financial templates and models, and then he just took my game to a completely different level.
That's incredible. Again, even the financial professional is seeing advice from other financial professionals. It takes a team, it takes a village. So Alex, what forward-thinking innovations are you seeing right now in accounting and construction?
Yeah, so that's actually part of why I got more excited about the accounting and tax side of my business. When I started my firm, it was just the fractional CFO work, and then I kind of begrudgingly started the accounting and tax side. But as I got more into focusing on how do I build that, I saw all the technology that's come out in the last 2 years here with AI and automation. And I saw how much I could raise the standard of what an accountant should be giving to a client and the value they can provide. So I've gone heavily all in on as much automation as I possibly can, as much AI insights. Like, I'm currently using AI in my firm right now, mainly just on the accounting side of just being more accurate with the books and finding errors or suggestions that the AI will see, as well as I have a AI chat box that basically a client can go into their dashboard, and instead of asking the accountant, emailing the accountant a bunch of questions of how much did we pay this vendor over the last 6 months or whatever, they can ask the chat box that and get the answer immediately.
Wow. And then an instant accountant? I mean, you're the accountant, of course, but an instant accounting assistant?
Yeah, just answering those simple questions that anyone could just look up, But instead of having to wait for your accountant to get back to you, how much do we pay X vendor, over the last 7 months or something like that, instead of doing the math yourself or going through the financials or pulling a chart or a report or something like that, then the AI chat box can immediately answer that for you. Also, like the reports give a lot of insights. So I can make a report, and then within 4 or 5 seconds, it will give me a little executive summary of like, oh, hey, like in November you had a 21% increase in income compared to October, and it's because there was a 10 grand increase from this vendor offset by like a 2 grand decrease in this customer, just like stuff like that, to where it's going to take a human, a little bit of looking into things to find that little nugget right there. Or, you can hover over every single line on the balance sheet or income statement or cash flow, and it'll give you a graph of, that month or whatever time period it is compared to previous time periods, and a list of like the highest, the top 5 vendors or customers in that category, or the highest transactions in that category. It would take me like 40 hours just to put all of those graphs and those charts and stuff like that together for just that one report. And AI does that in like 5 seconds.
That's interesting. That is fascinating. So, my firm is very forward thinking with AI as well, because construction and AI don't sound like there's something that can go together. Accounting and AI, yeah, maybe, but you're kind of in my industry too, because you service my professionals. But I'm not sure if you've ever met Yasmin Gardner. She was a guest on our show. She's a CEO of ClearSet AI. We've entered into a relationship to develop AI technologies in construction. So it's amazing to hear that not only are we working on AI on one side, in the operation side, but it sounds like on the accounting side as well, that there's plenty of tools out there to help us expand and grow our business and analyze where we've been faster. Instead of spending that 40 hours, I can, at 11 o'clock at night, I've got something keeping me up. I can log into my AI chatbot and say, what was my 2022 revenue? What was this? Or if you're doing those last minute presentations, not that any of us prepare very last minute for presentations or anything.
Never.
But never. Always weeks ahead. But, if you just happen to prepare for a presentation the night before, that's an incredible tool. So I'm really excited to hear that that's a service that you're tapping into, because I haven't really heard of other financial firms doing that. You sound like you're kind of leading the edge on that.
No, for sure. And that's one of the selling points of my firm, is like being on the cutting edge of technology. Like, accounting as a profession is really known for doing the same stuff the same way for the past 30 years. Lately, I've been looking at acquiring accounting firms, and almost all of the firms I see, like their tech stack is like, oh, we use QuickBooks Online and like create tax software. And like, that's it. Like, they don't even use like Gusto for payroll, or Bill.com or Glean or anything for AP. Like, there's no other software that they're using at all. Like, accountants are really good at just doing the same thing over and over again. And it's like, well, QuickBooks Online came out, 30 years ago, and I've been using it since. And then like, maybe they might stumble into another software once they come onto a problem, or a client wants to force them onto something. But the AI and the technology nowadays it's touching everything. Like you said, in construction, it's a very manual labor industry, and that's what people think about. But they don't think about all the planning and the structure, design, and everything and just like the customer facing side of it in construction, that could definitely benefit from AI and that type of insight. And AI is a trend right now, but there's a reason. Like,
making people money.
Yeah,
it is saving people money.
Yeah, well, like what I really look at is that it does 60 to 80% of the work for you, and then the human comes in to do the last part. Like, it does a lot of the repetitive, mundane stuff, but you still need the humans to come in and do the judgment-based stuff. But that's where the higher value areas are for clients anyways. So like, the more you can have your employees focusing on like utilizing and leveraging their expertise and like the actual judgment based stuff, and doing less of the admin work and stuff, like the more value you're providing for your customers.
That's wonderful. It's amazing to hear it coming soon to an accountant near you.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Well, if they call you, it's already there.
Yeah, it's already there. But maybe the accounting industry will catch up in 5 years.
In 5 years, 10 maybe. So the construction site, SIGHT, it's a little double entendre here. We like to look in the future, okay? So we want to know a little bit of foresight here. Where do you think the accounting industry is going? You already talked about a little bit about AI, but are there any other hot trends that you kind of see in 1, 5, 10 years from now?
Well, in the accounting and finance industry, again, it's the technology piece. A lot of accountants are worried that their jobs are going to be taken by AI because when you think of accounting, a lot of it is very rules-based. In the United States here, like internationally, it's more like a principle-based, but here in the United States, it's a very rules-based, very repetitive thing. Like you just need some insight from, an owner or whoever made the transaction on like what the transaction was and what it's for. But for the most part, it's just the same stuff over and over and over and over again. And AI can really help cut down a lot of the legwork. But I think a lot more firms, and I'm seeing it right now, that a lot more firms are trying to be more forward-thinking and pivoting to the more advisory role of instead of just doing the mundane, bookkeeping work, they're trying to give insights like, okay, we have the data now, like the AI is helping us get the data accurately and quickly, but now what does that mean, to the client and being that that person that's translating it. In the next 5 years, I think it's going to be kind of requirement that you have to have AI and automation, or your firm is just going to be left behind. Like who's going to want to go to their normal CPA down the street that's just doing QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop or something, and not using all these other insights that are now kind of like industry standard. It's shifting really, really quickly.
Okay, and then kind of going on that point, in that time frame, the 1, 5, 10 years, is there any one innovation that you'd like to see before you retire?
The random thoughts that I have just laying in bed at night, one of these days, when I have all the money in the world, I'm going to design my own accounting system.
Okay.
It does all the things that I want it to do. Because there's so many software out there that I'm like, if only you guys could merge companies. Because there's features of one product that are so amazing. There's another company that does a similar thing, but then has an awesome feature. And it's like, okay, well, it wouldn't make sense to use both software or whatever. I wish they could just merge and get together. But
so more streamlined accounting system with more features all in one instead of cherry pick them from system to system.
Yeah, and just that makes sense that has a side where finance and accounting professionals can go that in-depth type of route, but also is simple enough that a non-finance professional can look at the dashboards and stuff and understand what they're looking at.
That's incredible. So, Alex, it's hard to believe we've been talking for almost an hour, but this is the funnest part of the show, okay? It's called Ratchet It Up. We get a little humor in here. We get a little fun. I mean, we're already having fun, but it's a little bit of a funny in here we're going to throw in, all right? So can you tell me kind of what the craziest mistake you've ever heard of in your industry?
Craziest mistake I've ever heard of. I mean, when it comes to the finance realm, a lot of people don't want to share those things because those are pretty huge. It's not a crazy mistake. It was pretty straightforward, but like that $130,000 mistake that I was mentioning earlier, it was mainly due to a bank's draw sheet on a custom home build project. And there was a column that basically, I forgot how they worded it, but the bookkeeper thought that it meant that's how much money was left to finish the project. But that's how much money is left in the budget to finish the project as of the scope. That's two different ideas. One is how much, according to all the change orders and what we want the scope to be, how much it's going to cost to finish the scope and we plan on having it. And the other one is, okay, if we adhere to the original budget, how much is left in the budget? Those are two different numbers.
That is crazy.
And that is the reason why, at the end of the day, kind of what they settled on was because the bookkeeper kept on telling the customer, oh, we only have, $100,000 or whatever left to finish this project. But then when it got to the last few months, it was oh, by the way, you need to add in another $200,000 to finish this out. Uh-oh. And it's that's a bit material when it comes to how far off you are. You can't just hit me in the last few months that, oh, by the way, you need to chip in $150,000, $200,000 to the project to get to the finish line. So there's stuff like that to where the sheet originally came from the bank and they just didn't make it clear. Just a little tiny like syntax and how the column was explained like rippled into such a huge mistake, and just not being thorough enough or proactive enough to ask that question. Because like the problem could have been resolved of just like hey, like, is this can you confirm what this column means? But that simple question was never asked. And, a year and a half later, 130 grand was lost in the settlement.
That's insane. That is insane. Alex, thanks for a job well done. Thank you so much for joining us on Tommy's Toolbox, the podcast. If you have any questions about my company, TomCo Solutions, the construction industry, affordable housing, or real estate investing, please be in touch. My contact information is in the episode description, and I'll put Alex's there too. We would love to hear from you. Till next time, thank you again. I look forward to seeing you at the construction site for the next episode of Tommy's Toolbox, the podcast. Have a great day, everyone.